Hi, this is Chris from the Stephanie Miller Show. Please enjoy this exclusive clip from Political Voices Network.
Yeah, by the way, you just said 2024 is do or die for democracy. Let's roll. I mean, that's what, in a way, all of these stories are about. So let's talk about the other thing the Supreme Court's deciding on, right? Is this the thing that could undo, some rioters, including Donald Trump? Is that anything of concern to you?
It's a concern. They're taking up whether what went on January 6th constitutes obstruction of a congressional proceeding, an official proceeding. By my reading of the statute and by almost all of the judges who have decided this issue, it absolutely does. I hope this isn't a way for the Supreme Court to kind of undermine things against Trump without looking like they're directly undermining things against Trump. But here's the good news, Steph. There are still plenty of viable criminal charges against Trump. So in the worst case scenario, if the Supreme Court says that's not a good charge, first of all, that will result in a resentencing of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of J6 defendants who were convicted of that count. That is a real heavy lift for the Department of Justice. But it will leave the Trump prosecution largely unaffected because they'll just have to get rid of any impacted charge and go to trial on the remaining charges. So ultimately, we're going to be fine. I just hope the Supreme Court gets this right.
Yeah. And do you have an expectation of time frame? I mean, we had Jill Wine-Banks on yesterday, who obviously everyone's citing the Nixon precedent about how quickly the Supreme Court moved on that. And if anything is in the national interest, it's finding out if, we're about to put an insurrectionist back in the Oval Office, right?
Yes, and Nixon was 4 months from the time the subpoena for the tapes was issued until the time the Supreme Court, it went all the way through the system, all the way up the chain until the Supreme Court said unanimously, no, Richard, you are subject to criminal process, including complying with subpoenas and criminal investigations. They didn't rule on the absolute immunity issue, but it seemed to be headed in that direction, and they did it quickly. Here's the thing.
I believe they called him Dick, but that's the only way I'll disagree with you. No,
Miller.
Dick. They said no, Dick. Sorry.
No, Richard. I used the nice. I didn't use his nickname. So here's the thing. When Jack Smith filed this extraordinary petition to try to get the Supreme Court to take the case and leapfrog it over the appellate court, the Supreme Court answered instantly, and the appellate court answered instantly his request to accelerate it in that court. It's on both tracks. And we don't know when the music's going to stop and in which chair Trump will be made to sit down figuratively. But here's the good news. By all accounts, both courts, both the D.C. Federal Circuit Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court, absolutely seem to appreciate the urgency of the moment in the way they've been ruling on whether to take these cases. So I think that's a good sign. I think the March 4 trial date is still likely. I'm not going to say it's very likely, but it's likely. But if the trial date slips, Steph, it'll only be a month or 6 weeks, and we're still going to get our conviction of Donald Trump for the crimes he committed well in advance of the 2024 election.
Holy smokes, I hope so, by the skin of our teeth. By the way, Jill said they actually did try this in Nixon's day. They tried to say we have to stop. It's the summer. We can't possibly work over the summer. And I said, did they cite Alice Cooper that school's out? Because you talked about them citing the Grinch.
Yeah.
You said Trump's lawyers file absurd, unprofessional motion in J6 case claiming Jack Smith is the Grinch. They actually quoted. Now, did anyone ever quote Sam I Am or anything?
I did hear some commentary on Sam I Am. I also like
Green Eggs and Ham.
Horton hears a coup.
Yeah.
No, Horton hears a coup.
A coup.
Oh. Everybody just quit today. Quit Twitter, quit everything. Glenn Kirschner wins.
Good night.
Glenn Kirschner wins.
Horton hears the You're hanging around the sexy liberals too much. You're getting too funny. You're taking our jobs.
You're corrupting me.
Now, Glenn, I know you're a dad. Could I have some apology music? I gotta say, it is kind of hilarious. You've read these, right? The Atlanta Journal-Constitution has obtained copies of the apology letters written by the defendants who struck pleas in Georgia. Bail bondsman Scott Hall, Ken Cheeseborough, Sidney Powell. At least Scott Hall, because I know we all have
Scott Hall actually
had to
wrote a
write or
letter.
make our
Yeah.
kids write. You
He
write an
actually wrote
apology letter for what you did. To the citizens of Georgia, I owe you an apology. This one, Scott Hall, at least he typed it out.
Okay.
This, I love that. Ken Chesper, I think, scrawled this on a cocktail napkin. I apologize to the citizens of the state of Georgia and Fulton County for my involvement. Sidney Powell, it was even shorter. I apologize for my actions in connection with the events in Coffee County. There's like the shortest possible. Like, remember, you would make your kids write even a longer one than that. Like, no.
And you know what? They are actually at risk of being sentenced to standing in the corner and going back to their office without dinner. So, yeah.
But it really is like, you
I
know,
know.
your mom would go, no, you need to say exactly what you did and why you're sorry. It's
Yeah.
just like, this was like one line,
Yeah.
right? I apologize. I mean, this is, yeah.
And it tells you everything you need to know about those people. You know, the only reason they have, in theory, accepted responsibility by pleading guilty is because they're trying to save their own skin, right? They're trying to keep themselves out of prison. That's the only reason we're hearing anything from these people. I haven't seen a single ounce of actual remorse for them trying to, you know, run roughshod over the voters of Georgia. So, but you know what? We will take cooperating witnesses, flippers, in any way we can get them.
That's for you, Glenn. One last one. Prosecutors in Michigan will present their case Wednesday against 15 state Republicans charged for acting as false electors for Trump. The charges against the accused false electors were announced by Attorney General Dana Nessel there in Michigan. So, you know, we've heard all these ridiculous excuses. Ron Johnson went on TV and said, like, oh, everybody has had fake elect. Democrats have done it too. And, you know, Caitlin Collins was like, what? Show me where.
Yeah.
Show me on the doll.
They just keep trying to do both sides do it, right? And this is absolutely not both sides do it.
Yeah, and the good news is more and more states are bringing charges against these fake electors, and I think these are prosecutions that could have been brought earlier, but they're pretty dang timely as we are in the run-up to the next big election. Let the states send the message that if you pull this nonsense again, you're going to be prosecuted. So these are important prosecutions just for the deterrent value and the message that they are sending.
Just to end here, because I always go along with you, but anyway, for all of us that wanted Glenn Kirschner to be Attorney General, what do you, as a former prosecutor, what do you think Merrick Garland's feeling right now? Do you feel like he feels like that? Like, oh, damn, I overcorrected to not politicize the DOJ, and now we are on the verge of fascism in America?
You know, listen, I always was somebody who could learn from his mistakes, particularly when I was prosecuting cases, trying cases, and I can promise you I made mistakes in every case I prosecuted, but I'd like to think I learned from them. I hope Merrick Garland is listening to the criticism from reasonable voices. Yeah. He is watching how things have not gotten better, but in many ways they've gotten worse because folks like Jim Jordan have not been held accountable for their crimes. So I hope he is learning that appeasement is probably not the best approach when it comes to people committing democracy-busting crimes. And I hope we begin to see the Department of Justice go a little bit harder after saving our democracy.
Yep, absolutely.
Democracy.
Yep, absolutely. There it is, my first drink of the day, ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic. Many of you know my story. I stopped drinking wine for 3 years during COVID, during the lockdown as part of a health reset. Now I drink wine in moderation, but this is an amazing new product. I've always believed in probiotics. And ZBiotics, check this out. You drink just one of these. It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. I am using this and I feel great in the morning. I don't have to worry if I have an extra glass of wine, I still feel great in the morning. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. I've always had acid reflux problems. It is this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. ZBiotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. All I know is it works. It is ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic. Go to zbiotics.com/politicalvoices or scan the QR code on the screen right now.